Hello, everybody. Hello, and welcome once again to Honest HR Nitrous. I am Bill, the company's expert. Thank you for joining me today. This is the live stream I do a couple of times weekly, where it's an opportunity for you guys to ask me questions, anything you're wondering about, anything you're struggling with, and I will do my best to help you out. That's the whole point. This is episode number 134 of Honest HR Nitrous. This is called Rejection in Job Search, what it really means. So we are going to kick things off today by talking about that. And as always, a shout out goes out to my YouTube channel members and Patreons. You guys are awesome. And also my super thanks donors. Those are really nice to get. And of course to you, my viewers and participants. If you are seeing this right now, you're seeing my beautiful face with my world-class hairdo. You should see a chat box somewhere in the vicinity of my face. And if you are a subscriber to my channel, you should be able to get into the chat box and ask your question or make a comment or whatever, hopefully a nice comment. And I will do my best to help you out if you have a question. So let's get into it. Let's get into this. Job search rejection. This is something that it really sucks, to say the least. And there's a lot of, what's the best way to talk about this? I think everybody has been here at some point. It's never easy. There's a lot of stuff involved with it all at once. It's just confusing. It's just maddening. It feels like your life has come to a complete halt. It's a real shot to your self-confidence, your self-esteem. You know what I mean? And on top of that, there's all the stupidity surrounding it. Like, you have to, at that moment, you have to do two things that, as if it's not bad enough, you have to then do two other things. One is endure the most rejection you've ever endured in your life at that moment. And then on top of that, as if that one wasn't enough, you then have to appear confident and in control and enthusiastic and upbeat at the same time when you're presenting yourself for jobs. So pretty tall order, you know what I'm saying? Normal human beings have a real problem with this. You really struggle with this. It's not easy. It's never easy to do this. And the big problem is that this process can be very confusing. What do you need to do to get a job, if that's your goal, or to make money? You know what I mean? It's not just a simple matter of okay, I know what to do, I just have to do it. There's a lot of confusion surrounding it. I don't even know what to do. I don't know if I'm doing the right thing. And you have that whole element there too. So, whichever part of this people might be in right now, whether it's the whole I don't understand what's going on, or I don't know what to do. You know what I mean? It's really hard to take. And I think most people have been here before. It's just a matter of, the reality that when it happens to you, it's just confusing. It's confusing as hell, and nobody is really equipped to deal with it. So that's the deal. Now, I don't know if anyone has any questions surrounding this. If you take it a step further and you get past the psychology and you look at rejection, either rejection after a job interview or rejection after a job application, you don't get the interview, we can look at plenty of those. And there's actually 3 stages to this process. If you are doing a job in the posted job market, which is there's the application stage, there's the interview stage, and then there's the offer stage, right? So maybe let's talk about each one of these in turn. So if you have done a job application, and you've done many job applications, and you haven't been called back for an interview, what does that mean? Well, let's talk about it. Number one, obviously, the problem, if there is one, is with your application. So your application consists of your resume. If you're applying for posted jobs today, the first thing you need to know about your resume and all that is that you need to customize it. That's kind of, chapter one, page one of chapter one of getting a job. You have to customize them today because there's such an overabundance of applicants that are applying to posted jobs that in order to elevate yourself above the crowd, you have to fit the requirements very, very closely. And in order to do that, you also have to use their lingo. So the annoying thing about a lot of this stuff is that you can call something by more than one term, and we see that out in the job world quite a lot. The example I always use is frontline manager versus supervisor. Those are two terms that mean exactly the same thing. But if one company says they're looking for a frontline manager, and then you respond by saying, I have experience as a supervisor, you're not using the same terms as them. And often what we find is that if your resume or your application is being filtered by, ATS, like applicant tracking software, where they filter automatically all the applications by computer, they look for specific terms, and they look for the terms that they themselves use, right? Because that's just the culture of the company. They use those specific terms. So if you're not using those terms and you're calling it a different thing, you get artificially filtered out because they say, I'm sorry, I didn't see any supervisory experience, or I didn't see any frontline management experience, when you in fact have it. It's just that you were calling it supervisory experience or something like that. So you have to use their lingo. That's the maddening thing. The other thing is that if you get rejected, you don't get called back for an interview. The connection that a lot of people make, the assumption they make is that, oh, you're saying that I'm not qualified, right? This is a statement that I am not qualified for doing this job. And that's not the case. We were discussing this in the previous live stream. The reality is that you have many applicants who are qualified to do the job, right? So just because you didn't get called back doesn't mean you're not qualified. They have to pick and choose in most cases between a lot of people who are all technically qualified to do the job on paper, right? Now, how do they decide? That varies. One obvious thing is like first come, first serve. So if you applied for the job, but you didn't apply for it on day one or the beginning of day one or something like that there might be a cutoff there, right? And that's simply all that rejected you is because you didn't apply soon enough, right? For that particular job. Other reasons that you could get rejected from at the application stage and not get called back for an interview are things like, well, they have something called it's called various things, but I call it like hidden elimination criteria. It's where they were actually looking for other things, but they didn't tell you what those were. They wanted to see if they could spot them without tipping you off that like we're actively looking for this. The problem is when they tip you off and they say, we want this, then everybody says they have that, right? That's the problem. So they wanted to try and get a more objective view of what people have by not saying we're looking for this specifically, just to see if they could detect that on people's applications. What can you do about that? Nothing. There's no way you could unless you've got ESP or something, you can't predict these things, right? You take your best guess, and that's all you can do. You're human. You know what I mean? And sometimes they're looking for some pretty bloody weird things. That's just the reality. So, if you didn't have it, was that a reflection on you? No. These people got it into their heads that this thing means a candidate that's going to probably work out, right? There's no scientific basis for that. It's total pseudoscience. You know what I mean? But that's what they were looking for. So what can you do? And there's always these kind of quirks. Sometimes you're on the winning side of it. Sometimes you're on the losing side of it. There's absolutely nothing you can do about it. This sort of thing. So, it's sort of like that question, tell me about yourself, right? The job interview question, tell me about yourself, where there's like a sort of standard way of answering it. But every once in a while you get some pretentious jackass asking the question that They ask the world's most general question. And then if you don't respond with something extremely specific, they'll eliminate you or they'll regard it as like a red flag or something. Like, it's just so stupid. You've got idiots out there doing this. So sometimes it's because of that, right? Anyway, so that's being rejected at the application stage. Then we move on to the joy of being rejected at the interview stage. So you go down for an interview. You get called back for an interview. You do an interview, whether it's a physical in-person interview or it's a virtual interview on like Zoom or something like that, Microsoft Teams, whatever software people are using now. And, then they don't call you back after that, right? And you're thinking like, oh my God, am I off-putting? When I do an interview, is there something really wrong with me? Why are people not calling me back? Now, usually what's going on behind the scenes, if you're dealing with a recruiter, traditionally they would interview approximately 6 candidates. Okay, that's how it works. So you get many people that apply. These days you get like hundreds of people that apply for some posted jobs. And they would refine that down to approximately 6 that they would bring in for face-to-face interviews, a physical interview. Now that we're doing like video interviews, like Zoom calls and things like this, they are expanding that sometimes to about 10. So they interview about 10 people, right? Now you're one of the 10, just by the luck of the draw, you're one of the 10. And you go and you do an interview and they don't call you back. What's going on there? Well, there's a couple of things that you do have control over, and then there's a couple of things that you really, really don't. Of the things that you do have control over, the first thing is to realize that the job interview is really not about your qualifications. They can see your qualifications from your resume. The only way it would be about qualifications is if they're verifying that you didn't just lie outright on your resume. They want some evidence that you actually have this thing that you say you have. So they maybe ask you some kind of skill testing question about it, something like that, right? But with the exception of those things, which are not typical, right? The interview itself is about not your qualifications. It's about what you're like as a person. That's the entire point of requiring to talk to you. Because think about it. If it was about your qualifications, they could just have you fill out another form. Why would they need to bring you down and organize a meeting, and have all these people talk to each other in real time? That's extremely inefficient, right? So what they want to do is they want to see what you're like as a person. There's 2 things usually going on in a job interview if a recruiter is conducting it. The first thing is they're trying to verify that you do in fact have the qualifications, including a lot of the soft skills. So for example, you would need at least halfway decent communication skills. When they explain something to you and you totally don't understand what they're talking about, that might be a problem. Like, maybe there's a language barrier, or you're not familiar with expressions or terminology or, whatever. That might be a problem. If you have some kind of attitude issue, you go down there and you're really angry, or you're really short-tempered, that's going to be a problem, because if you're like that in a job interview, then what must you be like on the job? You know what I'm saying? It's going to be even worse on the job. If you behave inappropriately, or you don't understand manners or protocol or anything like that, you go down to the interview, you put your feet up on the desk, you kind of kick back, you show up in sweatpants and, a vest with like food stains all down, in the front, things like this. Like they're red flags for, oh no, it's not going to be smooth sailing working with this person. It doesn't matter how qualified you are. If you're so off-putting that no one can work with you or will want to work with you, right? So this is the kind of stuff they're checking for, right? If you take offense at like their questions and get all upset, if you're short or impatient, if you burst into tears, if, like stuff like that. Like, these are kind of red flags that suggest that it might not be smooth sailing you working there. So this is really what the interview is about. Don't be fooled by the fact that they talk about your qualifications just to have content to discuss. That's really not what they're probing for. They're looking for red flags, and they're looking for your soft skills. And that's really what it's about. If you're a boss, you're like a hiring manager, and you attend one of these interviews, you're going to care primarily about how agreeable the candidate is. Because if you end up choosing this person, you have to work with them. That's the idea. So you don't want someone that's got, they're going to really rock the boat. They're going to like be very demanding and very finicky, and they're going to like say offensive things to people and stuff like that. Like that's usually, it doesn't matter how qualified you are. If that's how you behave, no dice. Like it's a deal breaker. You know what I mean? So that's really what the job interview is about. So how do you detect if you're doing something wrong in a job interview? The traditional way is to hire a career coach. Now, I'm not a career coach. I'm not talking about me. There are many career coaches out there on the internet. They're usually like recruiters or former recruiters. If you really want to know if you're doing something wrong, or, if you could improve in any way, the idea is you hire those people. And this time they're working for you, right? They'll do a mock interview with you, and they'll assess what you're like in a job interview, and then they'll give you some pointers. So unlike the recruiters that are interviewing you for a job, they work for the employer. They have no interest and no incentive to help you in any way. In fact, they don't want to give you accurate feedback and stuff, because that helps you game them and, like this kind of thing. So anyway, you would get a career coach, someone who can work with you and advise you and give you an objective opinion about how you're doing in a job interview. The poor person's version of that is to get friends or family, right? So if you trust a friend of yours, or you trust a family member, like a brother or sister or something, you value their opinion, you can do a mock interview with them and say like, look, how am I doing? Like, honestly, if I'm doing something wrong, I'd like to know that I can maybe improve it. So that's how you would spot that stuff, right? Now, beyond that, it's really just random chance, because people are looking for all kinds of weird things. People have all kinds of weird opinions on what traits and skills and things will make a better employee. Usually they're completely out to lunch, but this is what we see. So if you didn't meet some random, arbitrary, idiotic thing that they were looking for, oh well, that's why this is a numbers game. If it doesn't work with these people, chances are next time it will work with somebody else. So you do more of these, right? That's the idea. Okay, so that's kind of the interview stage. Let's get to questions. I see we have someone in the chat here, finally. There are 22 people here. Thank you for joining me. Ascension says, I wish that, if I can make this screen bigger here, I wish that I had learned a skill trade and saved the time and energy getting a BS degree. I'm 56 years old. The ones doing the best today are the ones who made their own way. Well, no. I mean, sometimes yes, but overall no. It's there are many ways to make your fortune depending on your situation. Some people go up within the establishment and apply for posted jobs when they start out, and they make it work. Other people get screwed around majorly, by that, just by either you get a bad employer that is doing bad things to their own workforce, or you get just market forces and things like you put in many years with an employer and then they go bankrupt, and you get laid off, and it's unfair, but you know what I mean? It's not intentional. Other times you get people that go their own way and totally fail. And I mean, I do work in the world of entrepreneurship, and I can tell you I've seen my fair share of that. Or you get people that go their own way and really clean up. So, you know what I mean? You see everything, right? It's not just, oh, this works and that doesn't. It's you do see everything, you know what I mean? It really depends on your personal situation and your God-given gifts, like some people just are tuned into certain things, other people really aren't. Some people have great people skills, other people don't. But then it really also depends on how hard you work on things. Some people work very hard and very smart on improving themselves. Other people, they don't. Other people still, they try hard, but they're doing the wrong things. So it doesn't really pay off that much. You know what I mean? We see it all. Ascension says, hello, love your videos. Bachelor of Science. Well, thank you. I'm glad that you like my stuff, and thank you for saying so. I'm glad that it's doing some good. Like Bachelor of Science, I mean, just in general, a Bachelor of Science is not a Mickey Mouse degree. I mean, you know what I mean? If a Bachelor of Science was worthless, I think the world would stop. You know what I mean? So, I mean, obviously, within a Bachelor of Science, there's some subtlety and some nuance there, you know. But in general, I think it's pretty solid. But once again, like, you see, the thing is, what a lot of people don't realize that really taints their opinion and skews their view of the world is that most people get hired by networking. That's extroverts and introverts. That's people who have friends in high places and people who really, really don't. They get hired with networking. The most popular form of networking is something called direct outreach, where you reach out to people that you don't know, that these people are in positions where they could possibly help you. They could either give you a job, or they could, you know, you could do gig work, or you could have some alliance or partnership with them or whatever. You know what I mean? Like that's the most popular thing to do. You could be a raging introvert that has like social phobia and like agoraphobia, and you could still do this and kick ass, because in order to do it, it doesn't involve you leaving your house or your home or whatever, wherever you're at. You know what I mean? So that's a lot of times, in my experience, the part that some people are missing. You've never been shown this. Nobody's ever taken you aside and say, look, forget what you learned in school, like about doing job interviews. This is how the world works. This is how it's done. Go out and try it, you know? Now that we have the internet, now that we have things like LinkedIn and Google Maps, you can do this from your home. You know, you can do all the hard work from your home. And then the only time you would ever have to leave your home to go and talk to somebody is when they've invited you in. They say, we want to talk to you, right? So tune into this. I'm going to do a ChatGPT session in a bit, and you can see this is not coming from me. This is not something I made up off the top of my head. This is out there. You know, you can see this. Rockport says, it seems like most jobs are being filled internally. Posting a job is just a formality. Sometimes, yes. But overall, no. It might seem like that if you are only looking in certain places. For example, a lot of posted jobs now, they're getting worse and worse for like fake jobs. You know, either legitimate stuff that's been left up there, or stuff that was never legitimate. It was like either a job that didn't materialize, or it's like a sort of standing thing, like we're always looking, you know, for good people, that kind of crap. Or it's intentionally malicious. It's a scam. It's either industrial espionage or it's some identity theft scheme. You know, like we do see those, right? You know, so it depends where you're looking. Now, the thing about jobs that they never ever tell you in school, at least I've never heard of anyone teaching high school kids this or anything, is yes, you need qualifications. Okay, we know that. Yes, you also need soft skills, right? If no one can deal with you without wanting to go jump off a bridge afterwards, that's going to be a problem, right? So we know about that too, right? But the third component that really, really matters is trust. You know, when they invite someone in and they're inviting in a total stranger off the street, you know, the thing is, let's pretend that person was malicious in some way. Let's say they said all the right things, but really they were an anarchist that hates the employer and everything the employer stands for. And they're just wanting to get on the inside so they can do all kinds of damage. They can burn down the building. I don't know. You know what I mean? And I've seen stuff like that. You know what I mean? Like, now, for workers, it's a little bit different. If you're at the worker level, like at the base level, you're not like a manager or anything. You're at the worker level. They solve this problem by having this attitude that, oh, a worker is a worker is a worker. Oh, this one didn't work out? Okay, well, our plan to deal with this is pretty much to let them go, hire a new one, and get on with our lives. That's kind of like the attitude, right? And they resign themselves to the fact that a certain percentage of workers they hire, will not work out, right? And it's stupid because they're getting even more and more lenient every year, so they put even less effort into like verifying these things. But that's how they handle it at a worker level. Imagine like a manager level, like supervisor and up. Now you're responsible for making decisions. Okay. Now they're inviting you in. They're saying, here's this business operation that we've built up, maybe over many years, right? Now, congratulations, you now work here. Your role is to run it. You make decisions as to how we run this, right? Imagine if they picked someone who had the qualifications, but, and they had the soft skills, they were like friendly or whatever, but they just weren't trustworthy. They were a plant from a competitor, or they had some kind of chip on their shoulder and, or whatever. They were just crazy or whatever. And, now you've invited this person and you put them in charge. They could like do untold damage. They could do irreversible damage. So even if they burnt the place down to the ground, you could still rebuild it, right? But they can do even more damage than that. They can like make it so that no one will ever want to do business with that employer ever again. Now I'm being dramatic. I'm giving you an extreme case, but the point is, when you take a bet on somebody, there's a real downside if you get it wrong. And the higher the position is, the more that downside is. And so that's why, coincidentally, the higher we go, the more people don't want to hire a stranger that they don't know who this person is. Oh, sure, they say the right thing in a job interview, but you don't know if that's an act. It doesn't take a lot of brains to figure out what we want to hear. You know what I mean? So trust is the missing kind of component. Why do they hire internally? Because you already know the person you're getting. Are they the most competent person that ever walked on the earth? No. They might not even be that good. But they've been here for 10 years. So that they're not crazy. They're not like gonna sabotage you intentionally. They're not going to be grossly incompetent. You know what I mean? Like, you've worked with them for a long time. The company knows these persons. You can talk to that person's boss and have that boss give them a personal recommendation saying that, I recommend this person. I'm going to go out on a limb and tell you that they're good. Now, if they turn out to be bad, it's a reflection on me. I'll never be trusted again. Right? And they get that. They go, okay, this person is a pretty safe bet. That's the real the real kind of reason why they like to hire internal people, if they can. But internal hires is not really a hire, because think about it. Let's say you've got an organization, okay? You've got a vacancy right up here, right? And you decide to take this person down here and move them up into that role. Great. Okay, you filled this role. You've now created a vacancy right here that you then have to fill also. So one way or another, if you keep shuffling people around, you're still not filling the hole in a net sense, right? You still have to hire somebody from the outside, right? If someone retired or someone, left or whatever, or you're expanding, you still need new people. So even if you fill this job with an internal hire, you're then going to you're chasing that vacancy around the organization. You need to fill it with someone from the outside, assuming you're not downsizing. Gara Mateus says, jobs are posted on internet just for compliance goals or scam. Sometimes, yes. Usually, no. Ascension says, if I could do it over, I would have started answering phones at a law firm and obtained a paralegal certificate. Law firms offer so many opportunities and a variety of specialties they pay, and many are now remote. Pay well. Okay, well, woulda, coulda, shoulda, right? Well, considering you can't do it over, the relevant question is, what are you going to do today? Like, are you going to change anything today? Are you going to make a move in terms of career? Are you going to make a move in terms of skills? That's the question. Life is long. You got a lot of opportunity if you know where to look. If you're interested in exploring that, we could certainly get into that. That might be a very productive way of thinking. Bolt Lightning says, have you heard of those memes? Well, I would probably say not. I know nothing about memes. Entry-level job postings, but they still require X amount of experience. What's with that? It's very simple. It's horseshit, if I can put it in scientific terms. It's either obviously not an entry-level job if they need 5 years experience. I would have thought that self-evident. Or they don't actually need 5 years experience, in which case it would be an entry-level job, but they're doing that just to see who they can get, right? I mean, what would you do if you had to hire somebody to assist? You say you were hiring an assistant, okay? Bolt Lightning assistant role, okay? Lots of perks, great salary. All you have to do is bring you a drink, whatever you drink a Snapple. Someone has to mop your brow, right? So you need a person to do this, right? And basically be on call 24/7. That's the role, okay? Now, there's a lot of people out there that need jobs. There's a lot of people out there that are capable, right? Let's say this is an entry-level job. You don't need someone with a PhD, right? I don't know how good PhDs would be at mopping somebody's brow. They'd probably lose their temper, get all arrogant, and refuse to do it. I don't know. It takes maybe a blue-collar person to have the, humility to be able to do that. Anyway, so, you don't need to pay someone the earth and the sky to do this. You could probably find a half-decent person that's happy to get the job. They're starting out, they would love to be able to say, listen, I've had a job. I did a good job. Here's my boss's phone number. If you want a reference to show that I am reliable and I am capable and I am to be trusted, this person will give me a good reference. It's something I can put on a resume, right? Now, you don't need experience to do it, but if you could get somebody that has, 5 years experience working in in a bank or on a film set or, something like that like they already know how to be a professional assistant and they're willing to do the job and they'd be happy here working for you because you're going to treat them properly. Unlike on a film set where they were treated like human garbage, they would rather work for you and they're happy to work for you because even though they're not making a ton of money, they go home at the end of the day feeling pretty good. Would you not shoot for that if there was such a person out there, right? You'd want that person to identify themselves and then you'd maybe look at them first, right? That's normal behavior. You know what I'm saying? Okay, so maybe that explains it. I'm not justifying calling it an entry-level job and then having 5 years of experience. That's stupid. But obviously, they're mutually exclusive. One is not true. So what I would suspect is that the requirement of 5 years experience, that's not really a requirement. That's a nice to have. We see that a lot. People say a lot of things in job postings that are requirements, but really they're not requirements. They're just nice to have. They would like people to have that in a perfect world, but if you're a really amazing person and you're really into doing the job, they're willing to overlook that requirement if you have the other things, right? So that's usually what explains it, right? But the thing is about this world, everything happens some of the time, right? So you always get some weird exception, and then that's the thing that gets attention, right? Well, we've caught up with questions. There's 33 people here. Thank you for being here. Hopefully you're getting something out of this. Let me know if you're wondering about something, struggling with something, and we can get into it. Just for the sheer hell of it, let's look that up. I want to see what ChatGPT says about that. Okay, so it's an oft repeated thing that you get job postings or things purporting to be job postings that claim that they're entry-level jobs, but yet they clearly say that they require like 5 years of professional experience. What the hell is that? I'm just curious. Okay, this drives people nuts for a reason, so it's not just me. And now it's reassuring me, so I feel reassured, and I feel safe, which is very important. Entry level does not equal entry level anymore. Okay, that's an interesting concept. In many companies, entry level just means lowest rung we're willing to pay for. Awesome. This is the world of corporate exploitation language. It does not mean new graduate, professional job, zero experience. It means junior relative to their intern. So what they're doing is they're changing the definition of entry level. There you go. See, that's what didn't add up. Okay, the job description is a wish list, not a reality. Yeah, that's what my money's on in most situations, right? Like we talked about. Credential inflation is real. Over time, requirements creep upward because the job market got more competitive. Companies got lazy. So just dumb people at the helm, basically. And it's a filtering and intimidation tactic. Let's be blunt. Oh, please, let's be blunt here. Those requirements are also meant to scare off weaker or less confident candidates. Yeah, because it's all about fear, right? That's the first thing they teach you when you're learning how to recruit for jobs in HR. And I've taught recruiters in business school. It's all about fear. You got to instill fear. That's why the HR person is usually like a 95-pound small build young lady. They should change it. They should make all HR representatives 300-pound, 6'4", muscle-bound, ultimate fighting champion winners. That would be fun. All hopped up on steroids, to get that aggression. Now you try and apply for a job through them. I think that would be interesting. I think a lot of people would actually prefer that. Okay, so anyway, there's various excuses of how they justify it, but you're basically onto the right thing. It just doesn't add up, and you're right. Let's see, where did we leave off here? If I could do it over, paralegal, many are remote, pay well. Yep, we're still in the same place, so no actual new questions. There are 40 people here. Well, thank you for being here. If you are a subscriber to my channel, if you have been for any amount of time, you should be able to get in the chat, ask me some questions, whatever you're wondering about, whatever you're struggling with, let me know. If you want to go deeper with me, check out this course. This is my Get Hired course. There's a link to it in the description box under this live stream. And there's also a link to a video where I describe the course. I explain how it works and what you get, and everything's transparent. So check that out. It's all my advice in one place. It's great for, it's tailored for introverts. And it basically teaches you two things: how to get hired in the posted job market and how to get hired in the hidden job market. So check that out. More on that later. Okay, we got some more chat stuff going on here. Adrian says, why would they ask for salary expectations during the application process? Simple, to eliminate you. They're not asking the question to try and accommodate you, try and see like, okay, how much money would you need? Let's see if we can come to some arrangement. That's not what they're doing there. It's purely 100% to eliminate you. That's why they ask it to you on the application process itself. That's why it's usually a mandatory question. That's why you can't skip the question, right? And then the idea is that if you answer higher than a certain hurdle number that only they know, right? That they're not disclosing. What they do is they then, it automatically rejects your application. That's the only reason they ask you any of those questions, where they're mandatory. They're like usually if it's online, if it's on a website, it's usually like a box that pops up, right? You have to answer it in a box. You can't skip it. You have to put a number, right? Incidentally, if you're wondering what to do there, here's my advice. Okay, usually at that point, you don't know many critical things about this job. For a start, you don't know if they have benefits. You don't know the vacation, like how much vacation days you get, if you get sick days. You don't know if your boss is going to be a colossal prick. You don't know if the work itself is going to be impossible to do or demanding or whatever. You don't know critical things that would affect like how much money you would need. You know what I mean? Is it remote work? Is it not? Like, is that not clear? That would be pretty important to know when you're asking for a certain amount of money that makes sense to you, right? So the point is, there are these big blank spaces where they haven't told you about the job. You know, is it shift work? Is it, do you have to work holidays? And you're like, blah, 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 right? So here's what you do. Imagine all those blank spaces that you don't know. Imagine they're all best case scenario, okay? Your coworkers are fantastic. They're your best friends. Your boss is amazing. The work is exciting. There are plenty of opportunities for advancement, generous benefits, generous package, opportunities for advancement, et cetera, et cetera. Lots of vacation, blah, blah. Imagine it's all best case scenario, then fill in that number. It'd probably be a lower number, right? But it's honest. Then, as they choose to disclose more about the job, you can always revise that number upwards, right? That's what's going on here. They're not telling you anything, and they're saying you have to give a number first, right? So, I mean, it's less than forthright to begin with, right? It's just these cheap-ass tactics, to try and manipulate you, right? Well, you don't have to play that game. So imagine it's like best case scenario and then fill in that number. And if it was best case scenario, you'd stick to your number. It's as simple as that. There's no misrepresentation or anything going on, right? So hopefully you get past the stupid little screening question there, and then you get to the point where they interview you. You learn a bit more about what the job involves, right? And if it still makes sense to you, you can proceed from there. If you realize that in fact it's not best case scenario, your salary requirements go up, right? But at least you get to the point where you can investigate it, right? So if there's a chance that job could be pretty awesome, you stick around long enough to see that. Mr. AMC. AMC, that's like a theater chain or something, isn't it? In the States? AMC? I've heard of that. There's like the AMP also. That's like a grocery store. Speaking of HR, how can one get into it if they only have little experience but have a master's degree in leadership development, which focuses on DEI coaching and mentoring, succession planning? So this is you, and you're wanting to get into HR. Well, you can get into HR for a lot less than that. I mean, if you have a master's, I'm not sure what you do in a master's degree of leadership development. Like you said, it focuses on DEI coaching and mentoring, succession planning. Yeah, I mean, those are subsets of HR, right? Like succession planning, not so much coaching and mentoring, but like DEI and, well, you certainly have the academic qualifications. It's all networking now. Go and reach out to people in HR departments, heads of HR departments. Go get informational interviews. Go, do like a pitch. Do direct outreach where you say, hey, I'm a fully qualified HR person. I've got a master's in this. These are the problems I solve. If ever you're looking for someone that can do this, let me know. I live close by. I'd love to work for you. I know you guys do work in this area, really good fit. Thanks. Have a great day. you know, blast that out to like everybody, you know, get tours of HR departments, go get informational interviews with people that run HR departments or people higher than that, and go from there. I've done a ton of videos about that kind of stuff, so you could check out some of those. There's one on my channel that's like 3 or 4 weeks old, something like that. It's called, what the hell is it called? It's about, I'm just explaining an experience that I had when I was teaching this stuff in university. And I made all the students go and do this, go out and get informational interviews with all these people in your chosen career, like CEOs and things. Go out and you get points if you get a selfie, you know, and all this kind of stuff. And universally, at the start of the course, every student thinks like, that's ridiculous. Why would these people talk to me? By the end of the course, they've all had informational interviews with CEOs of big companies in their industry that they aspire to work in. Some of them got jobs, you know? So if you give me a moment, I can actually figure out what video that was. I give you a title. Okay, so you have the qualifications. It's just now a matter of connecting to people to do it. Okay, let's see. Okay, that would be, where is it? This one here. So I made students contact CEOs. Here's what happens. Here's what happened. So there you go. Wildly unpopular video because people think it can't happen to them, presumably. But check that out. Bolt Lightning continues. For resumes, I'm so mildly infuriated that I have to tailor my resume every time. It is this issue combined with the job requirements that delay my submission. Yeah, wrong, because what you do is you use AI to help you with it, and then it doesn't delay you at all. That's what people are doing. That's why they might be outmaneuvering you, because if you're still tailoring it like manually and it's very labor intensive, you know, you might only be able to apply to a few jobs in a day, like, I don't know, 3 to 10 jobs in a day, maybe, doing it that way. But people who are, you know, they're doing it with things like ChatGPT, where they have all the prompts down, like step 1, do this, step 2, do that, step 3, do that. Bam, it produces a custom resume that takes your master resume and then adapts it to the particular job posting that you're applying for. It uses this employer's lingo. It draws out your qualifications that happen to match what they're looking for, puts that prominently up front, you know, figures out what soft skills and things they usually look for in that industry, in that role, and pulls that stuff out of your master resume and then promptly displays that, et cetera, et cetera. And so it's an automated thing. And that allows you to do the best of both worlds. You can do a large volume of applications, but they're all customized, right? So learn how to do that. There are a lot of people that on YouTube and I'm sure elsewhere that describe how to do that process, and then you just refine it a little for yourself after a while, and away you go. So I'd strongly recommend you look in that direction. Okay. You can be very effective doing it manually, but the problem is that you can't keep up the volume of applications as you just rightly pointed out, right? That's the drawback. Where were we here? Oh, it continues. Okay, I'm sorry. What kind I do to tailor my resume? What is we do? What kind I do to tailor my resume easily with minimal work needed? What makes a resume stand out? There's only one thing that makes it stand out, and that's like you match what they're looking for better than anyone else. Okay, there's like people ask that question: how do I stand out? Well, standing out doesn't mean like being memorable. Like you want to stand out, like I've said, you know, kind of. What's the term? I can't remember the term, but I said this in a non-serious manner. You want to stand out, show up in no pants, drunk, barf all over the table. You know, that'll make you stand out. You'll be memorable. They'll remember you for years, right? But you won't get the job, right? The way you stand out and get the job is, it's kind of boring, but you match the requirements better than anyone else. That's if you're going through a recruiter, because all recruiters care about is, do you match the requirements? That's what they're paid to care about. They're a grunt. They have to come up with candidates that match a list of, like a set of criteria, set of requirements. They're given the requirements and they're told, go out and find me some people that match this, right? So that's what they care about. Hiring managers are different. Hiring managers, they write the set of criteria, right? They determine the requirements. So for them, whoever they hire is going to have to work with them. They're the boss of whoever they hire. So they're going to want someone that they click with, that they get along with. That's by far the most important thing. Doesn't matter how qualified you are. If you can't get along with the boss is not going to pick you. You know, so you go down to that job interview and you're super agreeable. Anything that they ask if you can do, sure, yeah, not a problem. Would you be okay doing this? Sure. Yeah. Right? You just be someone that they would want to work with. So there you go. There's a rambling trip to nowhere. I don't think I actually answered your question. What was your question? What kind of tailor? What makes a resume? So that's resume standing out. IV Joker says, I have an interview in a week that lasts from 9 a.m. to 12:30 p.m. That's the sign of a good interview. And an employer that, either knows what they're doing or it's a very low-level job. Including a lunch interview. These are 4 separate panel interviews. I don't know what to talk about for 3.5 hours. What should I expect from them? Sounds like a very bureaucratic, large organization. That's what that sounds like. Well, okay, so here's what I'd suspect. You're going to be doing probably a combination of the 2 types of second interview, right? Why do people get a second interview? What's the purpose of the second interview? Usually, sometimes it's a replay of your first interview just for different people, right? So it's basically like you're doing your first interview all over again, right? You're answering the same questions. This is who I am. This is why I want to work here, blah, 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 right? And then you do the other type of second interview where you're going back and you're talking to the same people again, but this time you're going deeper, right? So it's not a replay of the first interview. It's an extension of the first interview. That means that you have to be consistent with your answers. So if you told them, here's why I want to work here or something, you told them that in the first interview, and then 3 hours later, you're doing another interview, and that same person is in the panel interview 3 hours later. They might want to go deeper, like, why is it that you want to work here? What is it about this type of work? Why do you feel suited for it? Why do you enjoy this? What's the element of interest in this? You're going to have to be consistent with what you said like 3 hours ago when they first asked that, right? So that's what I'd suspect. I don't know. It could go either way, but I'd suspect that if you're doing 4 separate panel interviews, which is unnecessary, by the way, what would they want to talk to you about? It'd probably be including a lot of people in the decision-making process, covering a lot of the same material more than once, and then possibly going deeper into different aspects of it, depending on what these panelists are interested in. Okay? Just do your best. Do the same preparation you would normally do, okay? Which is figure out what the answers are to all the standard questions and behavioral questions. Come with those 10 stories in your head that you're going to pull out to answer any behavioral question. You're going to pull out any one of the 10, no matter what they ask you. And then rehearse it. Do some mock interviews. When did you say this was? In a week? So you got a couple days. Grab a friend or family member, do some mock interviews, say, you write the questions, or here, I'll give you a list of questions, and you pretend to be the interviewer, and you're going to do a pretend interview with me, right? And we're going to see how I do, how prepared I am. And then if you trust this person's opinion, you can always ask them at the end, What feedback do you have for me? Is there something that you think I should do differently? What would you recommend? Right? If you have a bit of money, you can hire a career coach. You just pay for 1 hour, 1 hour session. There are many career coaches. I'm not a career coach. I'm not talking about me, but there are many career coaches out there, people that are like recruiters or ex-recruiters. They work with you. They help you get the job. So you do a mock interview with them. And first of all, it's good experience. Secondly, they give you all kinds of feedback. They say, listen, in my professional opinion, here's how I think you're doing. This is really good. This is not so good. Now, if you want to improve that, here's what I recommend to work on it. And things like that, right? So that may also be an option for you. That's what a lot of people do. Okay. Sergio Pineda says, what if I don't have social skills? Then there's only one thing, actually two things. One is you could jump off a bridge. The second one is you could work on your social skills. Because if you don't have social skills, I'm willing to guess that you're probably an introvert who has a lot of technical skills. Right? That's usually what we see. Usually it's kind of like social skills, technical skills. They kind of go like this, right? You got people that are great social skills, but there's no substance there whatsoever, no skill whatsoever. They don't know how to do anything, right? And then you get the opposite. You get like these, especially in IT, where I've worked extensively, you get people that are the opposite. They've got like fearsome technical skills, but they're an absolute misery to interact with. It's not that they're no good at it. It's that they're actively off-putting, right? Usually that stems from the fact that they have contempt for the very idea of social skills. They feel that's not something anyone would need to learn. You shouldn't have to do it, therefore I'm not going to, right? Unfortunately, they're the ones that lose. Unfortunately, it takes them about 20 to 30 years to realize this. They could have been running the show in 20 years, but nope, because they held that attitude and they don't respect social skills, they're still being a worker after 20 years. They're not running anything because nobody wants to deal with them, right? So the great thing is that social skills are actually surprisingly easy to learn. They're not rocket science. It's not brain surgery. It's not rocket surgery. It's not brain rocketry. So just learn the basics of it and then start working on it. You learn the theory and then you put into practice, just like anything else, right? This is how people learn how to do public speaking, how to have a conversation with, some executive or whatever, you're trying to do. Okay, so how can I learn social skills? I'm waiting with bated breath. Good question, it says. Good question. Social skills are learnable, blah, blah, blah. First, reframe what social skills actually are. They're not being funny, being loud, being extroverted, or having perfect lines. Yeah, that's for sure. They are making other people feel understood, signaling safety and interest. That means you're not going to be a jackass to them, and you are at least semi-interested in what's going on with them. Managing conversational flow. So that means having a nice, free-flowing conversation with them that's fun, right? It can be about technical stuff, but it's something that they want to talk about, and you find the interest in that, and you talk to them about it. They feel like $1 million, and they end up loving you. Step 1, learn the core mechanics. Most people skip this. So some basic stuff here. Stop trying to be interesting, practice being interested. Okay, so like asking a lot of questions to somebody so they get to talk. People love that. They love talking about themselves. If you just sit there and ask a bunch of questions to somebody and let them go, they'll think you're amazing. They'll be like, wow, that was great. I like that person, Okay, step 3, practice low stakes reps, I guess like repetition. Okay, so brief conversations with baristas or cashiers, blah, blah. You go out to You go out in the world, you say, hey, what's going on? How you doing? That kind of thing, right? See if you can get someone to say, oh, I'm pretty good. How are you doing? I was like, oh, I'm great. I really like this coffee you made me. Have a great day. Blah, blah, blah. Learn to tolerate discomfort. This is the real barrier. Anyway, it goes on, but you get the idea. And then you go deeper from here. Okay. It's really not that hard. Just take the first steps. Everybody starts out at zero, and I mean everybody. Okay. You can certainly do this. And I wish you the best of luck. And if you have questions along the way or whatever, come back and let's talk about it. Greg says, what is a good strategy to handle the hidden job market? What is the best approach of adapting to job hunting of nowadays? Well, the hidden job market has always existed. I suspect it always will exist because there's some very good reasons why people use it. You get, like, from the perspective of the employer or anyone looking for somebody, you get much better results than posting a job. That's the number one thing, right? The other thing is that it's so simple to do. You can do this. Everyone here can do this. I don't care how introverted you are. I don't feel like doing it all over again in ChatGPT because I just kind of did it earlier. But, take that question, ask it to ChatGPT, and you'll see it. Now, if you want to see what the hidden job market looks like, in the description box of this live stream, there is a link to a video I did. It's a free video on my channel. It's called How Successful People Get Jobs. Watch that video. That may answer a ton of questions for you. I'm not lecturing anybody. I'm actually doing it. You see my desktop and I'm going through it. Okay. And I'm showing you what that looks like. So check that out. Okay. If you really want to learn the whole thing from beginning to end with me, check out that course. There's also a link in the description where you have access to that course and a video I did explaining it. Very popular course. A lot of people have taken it. It's geared to introverts. One of the major things it teaches you is how to tap the hidden job market and get hired there. Okay. The most common way to tap the hidden job market, especially for introverts, is something called direct outreach. That's where you find all the employers around you, okay, that could have potential to hire someone like you. All the hiring managers within those organizations, right? You can do this with Google Maps and LinkedIn, right? And then you send a template message to these people, similarly to how you would apply for jobs. You send lots of applications out in the world, right? In that case, your targets are job opportunities, right? In this case, your targets are hiring managers, right? Not recruiters, not HR people, managers, the ones that actually originate the jobs, right? Okay. And you send this message to them. And the simplest form of it is basically saying something along the lines of, hello, my name is X. I am a fully qualified X. I solve this problem. If ever you're looking for someone like that to join your team, please let me know because I live close by and I know you guys do great work in this area. That's all. Thank you and have a great day. Right now, 95% of people are not hiring right now, right when you do it, but 5% of them are. So if these people are looking for someone like you, those 5%, you just landed right in their lap. They haven't posted a job yet. There's precisely one candidate now for that job, and it's you. Okay, so if that's the situation of the hiring manager, and I've been in that situation a lot, it's great. It's so much less work for you. You have this thing of like, okay, I know I've got to hire another person for my team. We just can't get all this work done. We need another person, right? Okay, fine. I'm going to, I'm going to pull the trigger on this. I got to hire another person. And then right then you get somebody contacting you out of the blue, says, hey, I know you do this work. I think that's awesome. I'm fully qualified at this thing that I'm wanting to hire. I'd love to work for you. And you say like, wow, if I reach out to this person and they work out, it's like, this is so easy for me. I don't have to talk to a recruiter. I don't have to get a recruiter. I don't have to tell them, okay, here, I need you. I don't have to draw up a job description. I don't have to draw up a list of requirements. I don't have to have meetings with a recruiter. I don't have to pay for the recruiter's services, either directly or indirectly. I don't have to sit in round after round of mind-numbing job interviews with people. This is all a sideshow. My job is to like get this team to do this work. That's what my job is, not to sit in job interviews and do all this kind of crap. This is a sideshow. So if this person works out, if I say, hey, come on in, let's talk, or let's have a phone call at least, and they work out, I'm going to go with them. And I can just get on with my life, and we can get rolling on all this work that we have to do. You know what I mean? So that's usually how this works. Okay? There's always going to be exceptions, but that's generally how this works. So that's the simplest way of tapping the Hinge job market. You can easily find hundreds and hundreds and hundreds of targets in whatever city you're in of hiring organizations and hiring managers that will have potential to hire someone like you. Adrian says, if you use AI to tailor your resume and cover letter, will the company see that as a negative? Also, will this help with the company using ATS to scan your resume and cover letter? Who gives a shit, to be honest with you? Like, if I can put this bluntly. First of all, let's put this in perspective. This applies to 15% of jobs because the other 85% are in the hidden job market. They don't go through this silliness. Secondly, how many employers that post jobs are using AI on their end to filter the resumes? 100%? 99.9? Something like that? So they're upset that you're using AI when it's a total open secret that they're all using AI to do every part of their job. They're even automating the entire interviewing process now with AI so that there's no humans involved. But yet they might have a problem with you using AI. So this is a very reasonable situation we're in. That frames the type of people we're dealing with that would have a problem with this. Okay? Second thing, most people today are using AI. For better or worse, they're using it. It's here. We can debate whether that's a good thing or a bad thing all we want, but the reality is that people are using it, and it's here to stay, and it's not going away. It's only going to get more prevalent, whether that's good or bad. So all I can say is get used to it. Now, I can understand that some HR people might have a problem with this because they have a tradition of being completely behind the times, and this is no exception, right? Spell check had a similar reaction when it came out. Oh, you didn't write this yourself. You just got spell check to fix it all up for you. That's dishonest because you're making me think that you know how to spell and thus are positioning yourself like a more educated, more intelligent person when we know you're not. That's dishonest. Who thinks like that anymore? That's idiotic, right? So I would say, who gives a shit? Use it because everybody's using it. And there's a reason why everybody's using it. It's like 200% faster than you doing it by yourself. And it's more effective. Right? So I wouldn't worry. But listen. This world is full, it's a tapestry of all kinds of different perspectives and opinions, right? So you don't have to adopt my thinking on this. If you still feel that, you need to do it a different way, that's perfectly fine. I'm honestly, it's really okay. I'm not right on everything. I don't have it all figured out for everybody. You know what I'm saying? Maybe some companies are justified in not requiring AI. Maybe they want you to use a hammer and chisel on a tablet to send in your job application via snail mail, which might make sense in their industry. I don't know. So, you know what I'm saying? I wouldn't worry about it. Just use it because that's so much more productive and you get a better result if if you're doing it properly. That's what you'll get. That's what I have to say. Adrian, you're awesome. Okay, don't ever change. IV Joker says that makes sense. Thanks a lot. You're welcome. And thank you for saying so. I'm glad it helped. Alex Rosca, my close personal friend Alex Rosca says, "Hi, Bill. A recruiting company programmed me indirectly to another recruiting agency for a job tomorrow. Finally talking with recruiter on WhatsApp by follow helped me." Okay. Well, that sounds healthy enough. It will be determined contract 3 months and another 3 and so forth. After 3 emails to 3 agencies, 1 call, not bad, at least 1 call. Thank you. Or no, that's somebody else. What do you think? What do you think of UBI? It will be needed eventually. I use GPT Perplexity. I don't even know what that is. I mean, are those different types of AI bots? They're all about the same. I mean, ChatGPT still owns, doesn't it still have like 70% of the AI chatbot market, something like that? That's dwindling. I did a live stream a couple of weeks ago about, I think that OpenAI is going to go bankrupt, but yeah, I don't really stay up on all the latest developments with that stuff. All the same. It's like, do you use Microsoft spell checker or do you use Grammarly spell checker? I mean, who cares? You know, they both work. So that's what I'd say. Alex Rosk, America First. How do you overcome age discrimination or explain multiple jobs in the last 10 years? I don't think you can overcome age discrimination. I wouldn't bother trying. If these people have made up their mind that they're looking for someone of a certain age, whether that's justified or not, I don't think we have any real influence. We're not going to change their mind. So either you beat your head against that wall or you just look somewhere else where people are looking for more of what you have. Like, I don't see a hell of a lot of 98-year-old waitresses, and I don't see a lot of 19-year-old CEOs of Fortune 500 companies. You know what I mean? Some types of age discrimination make a hell of a lot of sense. Other ones really, really don't. You know what I mean? Now, who cares about whether it makes sense or not? If these people feel a certain way about it, unless you're going to try and change their mind, you don't really have much of a choice if they're biased against you, whether that's justified or not. Just go somewhere where age isn't a concern. You know who won't have a problem hiring someone of your age? A person who is your age. You know what I'm saying? So that's usually a good tip off, right? So if you're worried that you're older and people might be biased against you, you know who's not going to give a crap that you're older? Generally speaking, it'll be somebody that's older. You know, that's the only real way I know to handle this thing. There might be more sophisticated, more PC kind of ways of dealing with it. I'm not sure. I'm open to that. But quite frankly, I don't advocate people stay in that situation dealing with those people. I recommend you get the F out of there and go to people that recognize your value no matter what age you are. You know what I mean? I think that should be the approach. But that's just me. I mean, once again, if you have a different perspective, that's fine. That's just what I think. Adrian, thank you. You're absolutely welcome, Adrian. Alex Roscoe, what do you think of... Okay, that's a UBI thing. Oh, universal basic income. I don't know what that is. Is that an American thing? Maybe that's an American thing. Felix Onyangogilello says, how do you go about a job advertisement where there is 4 years experience needed, yet I have less than that? How can I maneuver that in an interview in order to succeed the interview? Here's what I'd say. First of all, that's a common thing. Okay. So the job says we need someone with 5 years experience and you've got 2. Okay. Now, what we see that's common is that they don't actually require 5 years experience as a hard requirement. What they're really doing there is they're saying we want someone that just kind of understands the practical side of doing this job. It's not like they've come fresh out of school. They don't know anything about how this actually works in the real world, right? We don't want like to have to train someone from scratch and they have like a 2-year learning curve. We want someone that can just start. They understand how to do this. They've done it before, right? They know what they're doing. They've seen every kind of situation that you would normally see in this role. So they're ready to get started. They can be productive right away, right? So that's really what they're wanting. But they can't explain all of that in a job posting. So they say 5 years experience, Now, if that's what they say, but they still give you an interview and you haven't lied on your resume, you said like, I got 2 years experience in this, right? But they still called you in for an interview. That signals that the 5-year thing is not a hard requirement, first of all. It also signals that they think what you have as written on your resume is perfectly fine. That qualifies you to do the job. Now they want to meet you in person and see what you're like. Okay? Now they may ask you a question and say, well, I only see 2 years experience on your resume. Like, how do you feel? How is it that you feel qualified to do this? Right? Now, what you can say is, there's a lot of things you could say, but you could say something like, well, listen, you're absolutely right. I do have 2 years experience in this role. However, in those 2 years, okay, first of all my coworkers have an average of 15 years experience in this role, and I do exactly the same job that they do. I handle the same situations that they handle. I can deal with any situation that they're expected to deal with. And I have also had the benefit of being in their company for those 2 years. So I have learned from some highly experienced people. I've learned a lot of the tricks. I've learned a lot of, the do's and don't do stuff. That's, a lot of the unofficial stuff that allow you to really do this properly. That's what I can bring. So personally, I'm not too concerned about my ability to sort of step into this role and be able to hit the ground running and be productive. I don't really envision that there's many situations that I won't know how to handle because I've been doing this a long time and I've seen a lot of stuff, something like that. Like, I don't know. And what you're doing is you're just putting their mind at ease with regard to the real reason why they wanted 5 years or they said they wanted 5 years, right? They think, oh, okay, you know what you're doing. You certainly convinced me that, you would probably know what you're doing in this role. Right? And that way, you alleviate their concerns for that. So if they give you an interview, they've already signaled that it's not a hard requirement. Now they might just want to check to make sure that there isn't a concern there and you've answered it that way. Where are we here? Okay, Eric says, do you have any advice for interviewing again with a company after previously being a finalist but not selected? No, not really. You see, like, I'm of the belief that if they've rejected you once, they're probably going to reject you again, but you never know. There's exceptions to everything, but that's what they're predisposed to do, right? Now, is that like a sure thing? Obviously not. Like, if they're wanting to talk to you, they're wanting to bring you in, go, do your best. I hope it works out. But you know what I mean? Like, if anything else, it might suggest that what you did last time maybe didn't resonate with the people you were talking to on that occasion. So if you're going back to the same people, I would maybe try a slightly different approach. You could start that by going and researching those people if you know who you're going to be talking to. And if it's the same people you remember talking to the first time, I don't know if you did this the first time, you kind of boned up on who are these people? What's their background? Because if you know who you're talking to, you can sort of speak to what they're probably going to want to hear, right? Knowing where they're coming from. Like, for example, if someone comes from the HR department, then, you speak to them knowing that that's their background. If someone comes from the engineering department, you would speak to them knowing that that's kind of their background, right? So You can relate to these people in two different ways. So if you did that the first time, I would do it again, but do it better. If you didn't do it the first time, I would definitely do it now, and I'd make sure you tailor your whole approach to whoever you're going to be talking to. I know that might seem self-evident, but that's all I can say. Jack London, the author, says, those who hire, yes, but their HR specialists and LLM, what's LLM? Filters see it differently. Oh, large language model, filters see it differently. Okay, well, then don't do it, I guess. Felix, how do you answer the question of salary expectation, especially in a context where the previous job was a volunteer? Okay, let's answer this, and then I'm probably going to wind down after this because this is a lot of talking. Okay, salary expectations. Here's the deal. Strap yourself in, let's go. If they ask it to you on a web form, you're trying to apply for a job and they're asking you, what salary do you need, right? The answer is they're probably not telling you a lot of critical things about the job that you would need to know. Is it a remote job? Do you have to work weekends? Do you have to work holidays? Is it shift work? Is it remote work? What benefits do they give you, if any? How many vacation days do you get a year? Do you have sick days? Et cetera, et cetera, et cetera. Are there opportunities for advancement? You don't know any of this, but they want you to give a number, right? So what you do is you imagine that all those other things you don't know are all best possible case scenario, and then fill in the number, right? So it'll be probably a very low number. And then as you learn differently, if you get any further, if you learn differently and some of those blanks start to be filled in, you can always revise your number upwards if it turns out that it isn't best case scenario after all. Okay, you're just responding on the information that they give you, right? So at least that way you might stay in the game to see if this job is actually worth taking. Then let's pretend you get to the interview. They say, what are your salary expectations? If you give a number, you lose. Okay, it's just that simple. So what you try and do is you try and not give a number. The first thing is to say, well, it's too soon. It's like, I'm sorry, I would need to know a bit more about this job before I can really give you a number on it. If they say, no, you need to give a number, right? And saying like a market price or competitive, that doesn't work either, because they say, you say, market price. Say, okay, great. And what number would that be, right? So it doesn't really get you anywhere. The second attempt you can do is to throw the question back and say, listen, this job was posted publicly. Therefore, it's been officially approved, right? You guys approved this. It's all above board. Now, that must mean that the compensation has been officially approved. So can I ask, what is the range of the salary range for this position, right? You throw it right back. And sometimes that works. A lot of times they play dumb and they say, yes, it is my job to try and fill this position, but I don't know, how much it pays. Like anyone's going to believe that. But we still need you to give us a number. So then you go to your third and final thing. You give a wide range. You say, listen, look, at this point, all I can say is somewhere between here and here, somewhere in there, I'm sure that would be okay. I can't narrow it down anymore right now. I mean, I'm just sort of hearing about this, right? But that's all I can tell you at this point. And they say, okay. Now, if they ask the question again, they say, yeah, that's good, but we really need a number. First of all, it's starting to get weird at this point. Okay, so it's kind of a red flag how hard they're pushing this. But if they do that, you give exactly the same answer again with a smile on your face. You say, well, as I explained, unfortunately, I can't give you that. All I can tell you at this juncture is that, somewhere between here and here, somewhere in there, I'm sure that would be fine. That's all I can say. Right? Now, the reason you do that is because you're not committing yourself. First of all, you give a range. They can't eliminate you because you asked for too much, because your range started pretty low, right? The two numbers you give, they're a stretch, but they're not ridiculous. They're still within the realm of possibility, but just, right? So When you give a range, they can't eliminate you because you asked for too much, because your range started low. But then it still allows you to ask for more money later on if you do get to the offer stage. You never committed to a low number. You said somewhere in this range. If you say, I'm going to need something towards the upper end of the range, you're not going back on anything. And you said this from the outset, right? So that's why you give a range. It allows you to get past the initial screening, stay in the game long enough for them to really see your value, and then you can ask for more money at the offer stage if you choose to, and you're not contradicting anything. So that's how I'd recommend you answer. If they ask you, what's your current salary? Or what was your previous salary? The answer to that is to say, well, for personal and, I have a personal policy of not disclosing that number because of confidentiality issues, privacy issues. I'm sure you understand. And if once again they ask you the same question again, they say, yeah, we understand, but we really need you to tell us what your previous salary was. You say, okay, no, I understand, but as I explained, unfortunately, I can't because of my personal policy of not disclosing that because there are real privacy issues, confidentiality issues, right? It's a real thing. I'm sure you understand. What you did with some other party is none of their business. That's the reality. You're on absolutely no obligation to disclose this to them. They know this, but yet they try and push people around and exert social pressure on them because it works. And people end up telling them all this stuff. And the moment you tell them that, you lose. Right? So that's in a nutshell how the salary thing works. Salary negotiation is a whole other thing. I don't have the time to get into it here, but hopefully that answers your question. Thank you for the tips. No, Jack London, if you are responding to what I just said, no part of what I said is an NDA. NDA stands for non-disclosure agreement. If you say that when they ask you about your salary, you lose because you're being an idiot, because nobody signs a non-disclosure agreement about their salary. You sign non-disclosure agreements about trade secrets, about the work you did, right? That's a different thing. Nobody does a non-disclosure agreement about their pay. That doesn't make any sense. So if you say that to a recruiter, they're going to go, they're thinking like, okay, this person clearly is lying and they don't know what the hell they're talking about. So no, you don't say non-disclosure agreement. I didn't say non-disclosure agreement. What I did say is that I have a personal policy of not disclosing my salary. Because quite frankly, it's none of your goddamn business what I made with somebody else, right? So when an employer asks you that, and they say, we need to know what you did with somebody else, a very polite way of saying none of your goddamn effing business is to say, I have a personal policy of not disclosing that for confidentiality and personal reasons, right? That kind of thing. Oh, anyway, I'm frazzled. Felix, you're absolutely welcome. Thank you for saying so. I've seen such contracts. Okay, right on. Well, I'll tell you what. You go and say that then. The only time you might get something like that is if it's a unionized thing. I could see that. If it was a union, there might be other couple of exceptions like that. But yeah, I mean, what I said still stands. I mean, nobody signs a non-disclosure agreement for their salary. I'm interested in what other exceptions there might be. Let's check ChatGPT on that one, just out of curiosity. Okay, so does anybody sign a non-disclosure agreement for their salary, like their compensation? I mean, NDAs, in my experience, they're all about trade secrets and things like this. The context in which I'm asking is a job interview where somebody would ask you, they'd ask the candidate, you know, what's your current salary or something? And then the candidate would say, oh, I've signed a non-disclosure agreement, so I can't reveal that. Is that a thing? Let's find out live on the air. Let's see what ChatGPT says. Short answer, almost never. When people say this interview is usually not true. What NDAs are actually for. Trade secrets, proprietary processes, source code, client list, confidential business strategy. You know, that sort of thing. Salary confidentiality doesn't equal NDA. Okay, some employment contracts include language like compensation is confidential, do not discuss pay with coworkers. This is not an NDA. Why candidates say this in interviews, this is the important part. It is often a polite dodge, not a factual one. Do employees believe it? Mixed. Some recruiters will nod and move on, respect the boundary. So, okay, you could fool a few idiots out there. Others will internally roll their eyes, assume the candidate is bluffing, quietly downgrade trust. The risk is not legal, it's credibility. Okay, so here we go. The cleaner, more honest way to handle it. If the goal is to avoid disclosing current salary, there are better options and don't rely on a shaky claim. Much stronger responses is, I prefer to focus on the value of this role than so I'm intentionally going to not tell you. I'm looking for a role in this based on this. So you avoid it. You just answer. You talk past them. My previous compensation isn't relevant to this position, or you just end up being hostile. Those are basically what I did. It's just that I was trying to phrase it a little more diplomatically. One important nuance: employers cannot require pay secrecy. Well, depends what country we're talking about. Employers cannot ask salary history at all. Once again, depends what country you're in. Okay, so I mean, whatever. I wasn't 100% accurate on that. I'm just curious. I can understand that in maybe a unionized situation, if there's an agreement, like in part of the collective agreement, or a special clause in the collective agreement, or some special arrangement, then you might not be. You might be in a situation where you can't disclose it publicly. So would that be an exception? What other exceptions might there be to this? Okay, unionized workplaces, the strongest and most legitimate exception. Collective agreement may restrict public disclosure. So, okay, what's within a collective agreement? Rules about speaking to media and external parties. Okay. Certain roles, union reps may have extra constraints. However, this is crucial. They do not prohibit employees. Okay, so what it's telling me no. In an interview context, a union clause might justify not disclosing salary, but it's still uncommon. Okay, so beware if you're going to say something like that. I mean, obviously you should only say it if it's true, but okay, well, that's different. Real but a narrow exception. I mean, I don't think there's anything required, but they don't want to disclose. Nobody wants to disclose this stuff. My compensation structure is confident. You're not going to get an executive interviewing with a recruiter anyway, so it doesn't really matter. Okay, here you go. Government defense and national security roles. But would it protect pay disclosure? Not the salary. Yeah, exactly. Yeah, salary ranges are often standardized and known. So anyway, I mean, we could go on and on with this, but it depends how much people care. How to explain, America First, how to explain multiple jobs resign or fired in decade span. Well, depending on the details, that might be tough to explain. If you've got like a ton of jobs you were fired from, you might want to try and hide that, right? You can disclose the job on your resume, but if they say, why did you leave your last job, or why did you leave this particular job, or something like that, you would want to shy away from disclosing that you were fired, right? A great way to handle that question is to basically say in response to it, I was just ready to do more. I mean, there's a lot of things you could say that can kind of paint it in a better light, but I recommend you try every trick in the book to avoid saying I was fired. You know what I mean? I also think that depending on where you are in the world, they may not be able to ask you that, or they may not be able to ask you that in certain ways. So just be familiar with that wherever you are. Look up the local labor laws and stuff like that. Anyway, there's 35 people here. We've been going for over an hour and a half, so I'm going to probably wind this down in a couple of minutes. So if you have any last minute questions or anything, speak now or forever hold your peace. Check out this course, my Get Hired course. If you would like to go further with me, you would like all my advice in one place with templates and processes and all that kind of stuff. Check out this course. It teaches you how to do two things: get hired in the posted job market and get hired in the hidden job market. And that's where the real gem advice is. I haven't disclosed to this day on my free public stuff because it's hard to get into it in little 5-minute packets. That's the problem. So check this out. This has helped a lot of people. Very popular course. And also, if you're into that or this kind of thing, you may be interested in this. This is another course I have called Write Like a Professional, and this teaches you higher level communication skills. So everything I learned going from a supervisor when I started out to a CEO when I ended my corporate career, everything I learned about communication skills, I put into this course. So check it out. Once again, there's a link in the description box to both these courses, and also each one has an accompanying video that explains the course, how it works, what you get, all that kind of stuff. So check that out. I do the videos in the interest of transparency so everybody understands what this is. Yeah, check it out. They can work wonders for you depending on your situation and what you're looking for. How to explain multiple jobs, resign, firing. Yeah, we talked about that. Thank you. You're welcome, America First. Even though I subtly take offense to that because I'm not in America. McKinley says you should come out with clothing that has Get Hired course. Aha. Uh-huh. Yeah, well, I mean, just the fashion sense alone is, just a no-brainer, right? The company's expert brass knuckles, for a start, I think. Company expert baseball bat that you take to a job interview. If you know the name of the interviewer you're going to be interviewing with, you write it down the side of the bat. So when you bring it, you can rub the bat lovingly as you wait in the waiting room. You stroke it and you say soon, like that, right? I should come out with that. You can make a fortune. Don't like baseball bats cost like $1,000 or something? They're at least like $500. I've seen, they had a sports place near where I live. You've got like all these houses, and then they decided to build one store, like in the middle of it. I don't understand. I think the people that do the zoning for my city are on acid or something, but they built one sports store in the middle of like a residential area. And I went in there and it's got like, all the sports equipment. It's got like hockey stuff because, they play hockey where I live. But they had like a bunch of baseball stuff and they had all the bats. And if you wanted like a fluorescent hot pink bat, you can get it at this place, but it costs you like hundreds and hundreds of dollars. So I don't know if they're made of like titanium, uranium alloy or something, but yeah, so you never know. There might be some merchandising possibilities in my future. I will let you know. And you tell me if you have any recommendations. Okay, this will be like the last Louisville Slugger. Yeah, exactly. I know what that is because I've watched Hollywood movies, so I know what that is. Femi Williams says, "Hi, Bill. Have been looking for work in my engineering profession for close to a year now and had a few close calls, but no real job offer. Should I keep looking or look in a different sector profession?" If you've been looking in the same place for a year and you haven't found anything that's worked out, I would expand to look further afield. Doesn't mean you have to stop looking here, but don't just look there. You know what I'm saying? Like that's usually how job search works. It's good to not do one thing only. You would want to do 2 or 3 things. So if you're looking in this area, great. But look further afield, and also vary your technique. So if you say you're looking, what does that mean? You're just looking like in the posted job market, like you're looking through job ads? If that's the case, my God, tune into the hidden job market. 85% of the jobs are in the hidden job market. Look there. If you are looking there and still nothing, you've contacted all the employers and, excuse me, you've reached out to all these people and still nothing, then obviously look further afield. Look in different industries in the same region. Look in different regions for the same industry. There's all kinds of options. There are a lot of things out there. It's just a question of how you divvy up all the possibilities and where to look first. Okay? So I wish you the best of luck, Femi Williams. Unfortunately, I have to get rolling. Thanks to everybody who is here. You guys are awesome. Hopefully you got something out of this. I'll be back on Friday, so if you got more questions or whatever, we can do it on Friday. Until then, best of luck and take care of yourselves. I'll see you soon. Take care.